Hello and welcome back. It's your friend Steve Cammarata here with more of my book, Please Don't Die. I'm reading right now from Book 2, Please Don't Die, Dad. And this is Chapter 3. It's called Coffee Breath to the Rescue. For as long as I could remember, Mom and Dad loved their morning cup of coffee the best. They as well enjoyed a cup of coffee after dinner when we went out to eat at restaurants. The former did not bother us kids because it never really affected our timeline much. But the latter was always an inconvenience for us kids because the last thing us kids wanted to do was sit around a restaurant an additional 20 minutes watching both parents slowly sip coffee. One restaurant we would frequent with our parents as kids was called Wagner's Restaurant in Lockport, home of the best beef on wick in town, by the way. Hot roast beef sandwiches. Before they remodeled, they used to have a table in the back behind the bar area where customers could order takeout food. And this was the table that Dad liked to sit the best. I always felt like it was a VIP table growing up, but later realized that it was just Dad's way to get served fast and eat quickly on busy nights without waiting in line for a seat in the main dining room. One thing us kids liked the best about Wagner's was that when we were finished with our hot roast beef sandwiches and mashed potatoes, we were permitted to play outside in the church lot next door to the restaurant. They had a large yard where we would run around and tire ourselves out before we had to go home and go to bed. Dad would kiss us goodnight before bed, and I would always remember the faint smell of the last cup of coffee on his breath. It's funny how later in life certain smells trigger certain memories. One vivid childhood memory that I have like this is from church one cold and snowy morning. We woke up for church that cold morning to the familiar smell of the coffee pot brewing and sizzling bacon in the pan as we started to get ready for church. "Hurry up and get ready, we don't want to be late for church," Dad shouted as he headed outside to warm up the family station wagon. As we drove to church, I remember seeing Dad yawn once or twice and thought perhaps he should have had a second cup of coffee. I'm pretty sure my dad used to fall asleep in church, and sometimes I would take it upon myself to give him a little nudge to wake him up. On this morning, as I did so, he whispered in my ear that he was not sleeping, but he was praying, and I had just interrupted his prayers. I always wondered if that was true, but I have no way of knowing. But it was his definite go-to line under such circumstances. When Mass was over, us kids would head outside and have a few minutes to play while Mom and Dad leisurely made their way out of the church, saying hello to friends and fellow churchgoers. On this morning, we get outside to a bitter cold chill. "Let's go see if the water is frozen," my brother David said as he pointed over to the bridge right across the street from the church. My older brother David was always a treasure trove of information, and he once told me that this very bridge at one point in time was actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the widest bridge in the entire world. However, on this morning, no facts or scraps of knowledge did he share, but rather he offered me a challenge. "I dare you to stick your tongue on that bridge." Now keep in mind, this was a good 10 years before the movie The Christmas Story came out, but the result would be the same as in the movie. "Why would I do that?" I asked. "You have to do it because I dared you, and that's why it's called a dare. Unless you're too chicken," David said. And with those words, the challenge was accepted, and I placed my tongue on the ice-cold bridge. I knew immediately this was a huge mistake. I frantically tried to remove my tongue from the bridge, but it was as if it was superglued to it, and I could tell it was a serious situation when my brother's laughter quickly turned to panic and concern. I was crying, and he was scared. David ran quickly inside the church to get my dad for help, and I could see my dad running out to help me. I couldn't see my dad running out to help me because I couldn't turn my head, but I could hear his heavy footsteps stomping through the snow as he approached. He looked as scared as I was as he assessed the situation. What to do? It was to be good old coffee breath to the rescue, or so he hoped. I will always remember that morning as my dad tried breathing his warm coffee breath directly on my tongue and on the bridge in hopes of setting me free. Lucky for me, someone who had thought this through a bit more came to the secondary rescue with a warm cup of water and handed it to my dad, which he slowly and carefully used to aid in my release. I had seriously damaged my taste buds. Many years later, when the movie The Christmas Story came out, we were all reminded of this day when that exact same scene was portrayed in the movie. We all got a laugh out of it, But certainly nobody was laughing when it happened at the time in real life. Thank you very much. That's the end of chapter 3.